My name is Kate. Thanks for joining me, and today will be the first of a few videos that I'll be doing related to the knitting techniques that are used in a pattern I'll be releasing soon. This one's on stranded knitting with two colors. The pattern is a Scandinavian style stranded knit with the same two colors used throughout. Stranded knitting for our purposes refers to color work where the unused yarn is being carried in the back of the stitches when it's not being worked. There are multiple ways to do this. I'm going to show you how it works for me. I find this method gives me the best tension and the easiest knitting experience. What I do is hold one color in my left hand, one color in my right hand, and I will throw with my right hand and pick with my left hand. So I'm going to start doing that. Just nope. I learned to knit throwing style, so I do find that more comfortable. But when I'm in sections like this where the floats are really short, so not more than, so the floats being the yarn that's carried in the back, not more than 4 stitches, so this 4-stitch section is really the longest in this particular row that it's going to go. The floats aren't really very long. Just kind of keep going. Switching the colors is enough to keep the floats kind of under control. So in a section we'll come to in a second where the floats are going to be longer, then it becomes important to have to start trapping them. So basically anytime the floats are going to be longer than 4 stitches, I will start trapping them, and usually start doing that at 3 stitches. So we'll get to that in just a second. Again, throwing with my right. And then picking with the color in my left hand. So this section of the pattern now is going to involve using the white for about, I think, 6 or 7, 8 stitches in the section. So what I'm going to do is keep the white in my right hand. If I was, when you're knitting with the float switching all the time, in this way it doesn't really matter for me which hand I keep them in, but when I am going to have a dominant color or color that's going to go over many and I'm going to need to trap the floats, I like to keep the color that's going to be trapped in my left hand and the color that's going to be mostly knit with in my right hand. There's a couple of reasons for that. One of them is I'm right-handed and learned how to knit throwing, so I'm more comfortable with that. The other is having the yarn here does make it easy for me to trap it, so I will show you what that looks like. So we're going to knit. Now this one, the floats have already started going over 3, so I am going to trap it before I get to 3 into the beginning. So what I do to trap it is I wrap the yarn as if I was going to knit with it, keep it there, or as if I was going to knit it together with the stitch in between. So take it from behind, just wrap it around the working needle. Then I'm going to take the yarn that I'm using, wrap it around to knit normally, and then see how that pulls off to the side, and then just pull out the stitch. That will cause that yarn to now be trapped in the back. So there's where it was being carried, right here, and then there's where it's kind of trapped under the yarn. So we'll do that again. And again, I do that usually every 3 to 4 stitches. We're at the edge here, so looks like I made a mistake in the previous row. So we're just going to fix that. So I'll show you how to fix the stitch in stranded knitting as well. So I take off the lower one, pull the float out. There will be floats from the other color back here somewhere as well because I carried it. So here's floats. That is the one from that row. So what I'm just going to do is, and again, I probably could do this with the needle tips, but put it on, knit it. There we go. So that one's fixed now. So the floats in the back are still there. The color is there. If you use the wrong color in one row, it's easy to fix one stitch, a few stitches. If it's more than that, then it might be time to do some frogging to fix it. So again, these ones are, this section of the pattern here doesn't require that I do any trapping because there's only, in this case, I think 3 is probably the largest number of stitches that we go over. So there's 3 there. This one's only 2. 1, 2. So we're here again back to that section where it's largely white. So I'm going to do, there's 2 stitches. Let's trap it. So insert the needle as if to knit. Let's see if we can. So insert the needle as if to knit. Wrap the non-working yarn around the needle. So here it is, around the needle. And I don't know if you can see because of the color, it's right there. Then knit and have the 2 cross. So I keep that there, but they've crossed. So actually this one has come over top of this one, so now it's trapped. And then I keep it above, and I just pull just the one color through. This one's still over there, and it's now trapped. Do it again. Where possible, I like to trap it where the stitch in the row below was the same color, especially where there's high contrast. It makes it so that it isn't as likely to show through, especially if you're going to have to stack them. So if you have a couple of rows where you're going to use the same color and you're carrying the same float in the background, making sure that you stagger those floats will help prevent them from being seen in the front. So again, working needle through the stitch, wrap this one around the working needle, come from behind, trap that one there, and then just slide the stitch off. And there. So. There we go. So keeping the floats nice and even is important for tension management, because floats that are too tight will pull the knitting and warp it. Floats that are too loose will either create gaps or will, catch on things and will pull things out of shape. And the freer the threads are inside, the more likely that they're going to catch, or if you're in the case of like a stocking or a hat or something where you're putting something in and out of it, they're more likely to just sort of warp out of place, get caught on things, break, that kind of thing. So keeping your floats nice and tight and even makes for a nice internal fabric. It makes it extra warm because you do have those, essentially a double layer going on there, and you're not creating any wide spaces or gaps. And it just looks nicer and makes it easier to use the finished object. So this is what some nice neat floats look like. You can kind of see a little bit of the pattern on the back because, again, that makes sense. It's because it's very close to what's going on the front, because the floats aren't going very far. It does make it, it looks really nice and tidy, and you're much less likely to have a problem with one of these coming loose than if you had, than if I had a float that went this whole length. If you're hemming it, like turning it under, or if it's going to be lined, it's less important from a keep the fabric nice, look nice on the inside, catch on things perspective, but it's still important for tension management, so I tend to do it even if the back fabric is not actually going to be something, once the project is done, that interacts with anybody. So I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions or anything that I didn't cover in the comments, and thanks again for tuning in and hanging out with me.